Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Jules Poetry Playhouse Back Porch reading series outside in beautiful Placitas, New Mexico. So we have our live audience, and then we're recording this for our YouTube listeners as well. So I'll let John do the introductions, and we will be moving to Zoom in October, the 4th Tuesday of the month. With
October 24th.
With open mic and featured poets. So I'll let John say more about that. And I'm Jules with Jules Poetry Playhouse, and you can check out all of our events at the website, poetryplayhouse.com. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jules. Yes, we're heading back to Zoom for the fall and winter months. And October 24th is a Tuesday, and it'll be 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We're featuring poets from a new anthology called Up From the Ashes We Rise, which are poems about the fires, the terrible fires in northern New Mexico that we had a year and a half ago. So that you can put on your calendar. I'm like overjoyed to welcome two friends that I first met in the 1980s in Buffalo when we were all graduate students, and we studied with poets Robert Creeley and Jack Clark and others. And so this is a rare occasion, as they say. I also wanted to give a shout out to Randy Pruce, who is another one of our cohorts that had read with us here some years back, but he's up in Western New York now. So hi, Randy. First off will be Michael Boughn, who's visiting from Toronto, Ontario. And Michael is co-edited a recent online magazine, Dispatches from the Poetry Wars, which with the late Kent Johnson, which he describes as the notorious online disturbance. And it was a wonderful magazine. His most recent poetry books are Uncertain Remains from BlazeVox and The Book of Uncertain, a Hyperbiographical User's Manual from Spuyten Duyvil. And he's co-editor of the Robert Duncan's The H.D.Book, which was a landmark publication, a very important publication. And he's had press first in Buffalo and then in Toronto called Shuffle Off Press that published many important poets. And a book of his essays, Measures, Poetry and Knowledge, is due out from Station Hill Press this month, I believe. And we're so happy that Michael is joining us for the first time in Placitas. So yeah, take it away.
Thank you, John. Thank you, and thank you, Jules, too, for putting this together on such short notice. I really appreciate it. It's a real joy to be here. So I would like to read two poems. One of them's longish, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take. So when I get to the end of it, I'll check in with you and see how bored you are.
We're pretty flexible about that.
Well, yeah. My wife, early on in our relationship, my wife told me, listen, you want to leave them wanting more, not wishing you'd stopped 15 minutes ago. That's the best advice I ever had. This is called the Battle of Milvian Bridge. And the Battle of Milvian Bridge was I'm sure you all know what the Battle of Milvian Bridge was. It was actually, interestingly, it was a kind of crucial battle where Constantine's army defeated the army of Maxentius And he did so because he thought, because he made a deal with God, that if he went into the battle with a cross, he'd win. And he won. And he became the guy who legalized, made Christianity the dominant religion in the empire. That's the Battle of Milvian Bridge. The Zeitgeist won, the Zeitgeist shuffle. Where's the Green Knight when you need him and his axe to smarten up the Zeitgeist, when the Zeitgeist is all wham, bam, thank you, Nam, grab him by the... Well, Morgan Le Fay might have something to say about that. Nasty woman stole Merlin's secrets. A shapeshifter, sea-born, it turns out. And we know where that goes. Bloody, foaming god balls and half shells. Look, there she is, at poem's edge, draped in shadow to clue us in, fata, to a place of apples. If we can learn to hold on and let go at the same time. Nobody remembers Milvian Bridge, all that Roman claptrap jostling for a crown and empire, then bam, the damn horse throws you in the river, and the rest, as they say, is history, somebody's story anyway. Bloody triumph of the Prince of Peace and prelude to universal boot on the neck in soul salvation's eternal name. Amen. It doesn't get more obscure than this shit show. The figures who might explain it buried beneath 500 years of self-congratulatory manipulation and piled carcasses disposed from general vivisection of whatever enters line of sight, laid out in scholia and doubtful meditations on uncertain apparitions. Strange events unfold words, enchanted call of the abyss, and forest shimmers in a twofold light leap from the page to claim the hunt's meaning, face to face with indifferent twilight, as the struggle against probabilities reveals the sun as a star and returns the future to thinking, an art of resistance to obvious tomorrows, nevertheless rampant with forms familiar swell and surge in the starlight, wave after wave, each bearing weight. A Corbinus, a siege perilous, a Morgan, a place of apples. The Green Knight had no time for the round table, all that smug pat on the back falderall, meanwhile Lance diddling the queen, and Art in his own shadowy menage. Show me what you've got, said the Green Knight, and round, all but one passed. Round may work when pretending one's in charge, but creates problems when Kusa enters the talk of table equity, and it's all God this and God that, and centers and circumferences, when what's needed, a ragged circle of 9 magical queens to step in and deal with the beast's wounded throes, ripple through stellar formations, buzz, wreaking familiar agonies, continual gang warfare, and tormented edifice of slaughtered words. 9 magical queens, Morgan, Moranoa, Mazo, Glitten, Glittonia, Glitton, Tyranno, Phaeton, Thitten, measure yards of dream and memory of a place of apple currency, rage faded under their touch, beast returned to a dance of light and dark, shadows rule, register of creation, now and forever in dandelion insistence on yellow's measured shadow and unanticipated tomorrow. Corpusants are another thing altogether, sail into shipless lines with no warning from vague distances, contempt for coherence, as the poem's mystery throbs with light burns to beat the band, holy, luminous meet in the dark dance at the end of an iam's errant yardarm in the night of our souls spin through hell's terrain vague. Who? The zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon. Some say the zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon loved Morgan Le Fay, but she preferred Lance, fairies, and other less slimy lovers. Merlin, who saw it coming but went for it full amour. She must have been something, shacked up in his house of air by enchantment, so strong it may never be undone while the world endureth. The question, which world, not being an issue, even as several disappeared, and Morgan soaked it up for all she was worth. Mistress of the seven arts, astronomy and healing, shapeshifter to boot, while the shambling zeitgeist wallowed, swamped with lust and resentment, whispered in the ear of one hack after another about that nasty woman, her poisons and spells, so lustful a woman that a looser woman could not have been found till the story stuck, left the 9 queens adrift in Black Lagoon limbo, unable to bring warring worlds to a moment of common recognition, like the Green Knight brought to the round table, riding in with his big axe to demand someone step up and whack his head off. Not that Constantine knew about that. He just marched behind the zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon down Via Flaminia to Milvian Bridge, where Maxentius conveniently lined his men with their backs to the river, and the next thing you know, onward Christian soldiers hit number 2 with a bullet in grade 1 classrooms across the Republic, edging out America the Beautiful, the First Amendment, and leaving even spangled stars sputtering in its dust. 3, in which the mystery ship reappears. The absent ship sails by again, corpuscence merrily aflame, and signage boldly splayed to let the poet know he made a slip, and the elusive ship is without a doubt Solomon's, built at spousal request, the marriage bed, to bear crown and sword into story's bleeding future, lances, fancy cups, the whole round table shtick the Green Knight brought to a quick pause, the cup recalling Morgan's judgment, a sign of eldritch legibility, glyphs, untranslatable clarity, indigestible scrawl amid communications rubble. 4, a brief, obscure meditation on the Battle of Milvian Bridge, which also bears obscurely on the Green Knight. Nimbus, sundog, solvark, vision, parhelion, refracted scatter, sol, hound, ice, crystal, suspended prism, diamond dust. 5, on the obscurity of the current epistemic threshold. You can take the thing out of the sign, but you can't take the sign out to lunch without it acts up and causes a scene where causes reeks of laboratories and the death of mongrels, and scene represents anguished signage in the twilight, there and gone as headlights whip across its face. 6, 0 versus the zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon. This has an epigraph from the wonderful poet Billy Chernikov. Curve of God's outstretched arm, womb, word. The cut leaves no evidence of intent beyond usual scrawled ambiguity lit in flash of broken glass in alley's shadow, or our stars glitter bits splash in a white field. If what you mean is not what the zeitgeist had in mind, it will leave you out of proper bound subject of daily admonitions and its up-and-coming hungers, aimed at confirming self-regard on daily worship's throne and success in the market side by side on ice with butchered bats and poetry. 0 weighs in with nothing to add, a crucial quantity to further reflection on the ancient proverb, chilly today, hot tamale, an indication of time's own gift to outstretched hands, or où sont les neiges, etc. That slipshod presentation, a big, oh shit, where did it go? And eldritch lore being what it is, nothing adds a depth of understanding otherwise circumscribed by judgment's geometry, which brings the poem back around to the circular slab at the center of our story and the green night bearing news of the hot tamale. The language of hours. The language of hours slips as stars wheel, in purple perhaps, though that long ago moment never lost, reels in the light of cold evening, stretches past yesterday's edge into this quiet faith in the massive whirl of bodies through space. Each day draws a different conclusion, a close that's the same rose of another name, a new shade of rose, standing in for love's difficult conversation with edges and ends. Twilight knows the difference we stumble to grasp, thinking to yield a world explicit in stakes and pales. It's beyond a dancing light, Holy Ghost burning at the tip of the line. Can real ear is a weird glan. 8, the Battle of Milvian Bridge, finally. No, we're not really. The Battle of Milvian Bridge crossed a line, separates here from there, where here vibrates at frequencies bereft of their's zeitgeist, and the Green Knight no longer visits the homies to teach humility in the face of his axe, which is not Paul Bunyan's axe, and in fact puts it to shame for its failure to let the zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon have it a time or two, boom, boom, just to keep things honest, instead of cutting down all those trees to build modest bungalows in Chula Vista, meanwhile taking out 8 or 10 species of this or that, who can remember gobbledygook Latin, and the water filtration system for a large metropolitan area dooms the population to eventual death from acute cultural stupidity and aggravated criminal cupidity, but such is the zeitgeist hold on the balls of reality, anything goes, as the song has it. Auto-cannibalism topping the list of favorite pastimes, closely followed by killing wild creatures for fun and stealing indigenous children to bury in mass graves. Fata Morgana, la mistresse des fées de la mer Salée. Sundogs return howling at fairy castles in the air, light refracted eruptions, wild lure, sailors' death flow, ghostly nightlight spotted afar. Fata Morgana, they called it. Awe and fear suspended, ever changing inside waves, inverted above, elevated image shimmers, duplicate world named Sanikoff Land, Crocker Land, in spasms of nominative power grab, hills, valleys, snow-capped peaks extending through 120 degrees of horizon, ghost world, mirage. Hujok, Puitakok told them, mist, but they wouldn't listen, enamored of material analogies, phantasm, and power's grip on mind's conquest, old atoms, world where zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon sells a digital image for 10 million bucks, paid for in an imaginary currency, aren't they all? Mined with machines whose collective heat irreparably destroys air required by living creatures to go on. It must be the nadir of the swing, Kali Yuga blues, the land of apples just the other side. Meanwhile, Morgan, the Green Knight, and Milvian Bridge watch in wonder as General Jesus and his Christian soldiers, locked and loaded, blow away Pharisees coming to nail him up as per the ancient agreement they took for granted, not having heard the news, alternate logos formations now masquerade as restitution, lay waste to veritas domains and leave the story in the hands of sub-lunar exclusionist insurrectionists bound in compulsory liberty webs, contracted nominative mental isolation cramped to stunted not the boss of me ironic paroxysms, who rewrite it as a morality play about suckers who let themselves get nailed up for other people's sins. Meanwhile, Morgan turned back to Avalon, wondering whose mirage they thought they were doomed by. Fata Morgana's eruption from elsewhere, a whimsy of wild promise, not to be confused with that nominal conquest or the reaping of the world's mind. Clarification of obscure bridges. Don't confuse Million Bridge with Sinvat Bridge, or for that matter, the one for sale in Brooklyn, the bridge over the River Kwai, or Rainbow Bridge. Discriminations of abyss and its enchanted call operating at distinct frequencies outlined in ancient liturgical dances. Proscribed lurks beneath, cincture tight, shadows whisper names forbidden to mouths under the chai row, the cross that Constantine flew. Merlin, Morgan, old knowledge buried beneath heaps of tweets. Who knew she sent green? To kill Guinevere, some claim, but you can't know for sure when the whole space-time field is in defib and wild meaning clusters drop like flies around Gawain's bed as he worries over the fate of his head, when she may very well have meant nothing more than to shake it up. All those boys patting each other on the back, round and proud, the given world of their damselly dreams, badly in need of adjustment, and she was just the gal to do it, their disaster, their dark star. While not covered, Million Bridge covers a world of difference, leads straight to numerous units of extraordinary cruelty, where bloody points impale heretics and savages in an argument of signs adjusted to account for blue shifted meaning, staggers to catch up with armed believers. Bridging the distance from one word to the next, the gap from blade's edge to your neck, spanned by starry space, fades in flesh's thought, yields a word after a word, as if no abyss obscured wounded utterance, even as it roils each soul's noise. A bridge too far leaves you stuttering on the verge, staring down. Wonder when Morgan shows up. Young or old, it's impossible to say. A shimmer in the gulf. Names forbidden swirl around her head. She says this way. 11. The voices of the wells. Slick laminar rhapsodies drown out the voices of the wells with continuous ditties dreamed up on talk shows of authentic influence whose Prada shills inaugurate stylish resistance, or at least authenticated replicas in fashionable and sexy orders of authorized follicular inflection, while claiming inalienable right to unlimited market access in the name of general historic success. The zeitgeist from the Black Lagoon looks on, a slight upward curl at the edge of its moist lips, as markets respond with titters, signify a smooth outcome in continuing self-exaggeration, clogs cosmoreceptors with tangled network noise, extenuates flesh itself into prodigious attenuated communication on a horizontal plane. Reality, posing as infinite visibility, sets nothing apart, leaves nothing hidden in the glare, no shadow, no dark star to send the green knight to your door, his big old axe, looking for a taker in the land of the given, promises no waiting, where to wait opens the gates of day to admit silence and the deep wells of nothing from which the voices rose. That's enough, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next reader is Bruce Holsapple, and Bruce lives in near Magdalena, New Mexico. He actually lives some miles north of it in a beautiful and very remote area, and on the edge of the mountains down there. He worked as a speech-language pathologist in the Magdalena schools and is now retired. Bruce has published 9 books of poetry. His most recent is Wayward Shadow from Alameda Press. And he's now working on 2 new books. His book-length study of William Carlos' poetry, The Birth of the Imagination, was published by the University of New Mexico in 2016. And it's really an important book in the field. So I encourage you to pick that up. He also had fairly recently edited, I think it was a labor of love, two collections. One, the collected poems of Peter Kilgore, and Open Form in American Poetry essays by Burton Hatlin. Bruce will be reading new work and from his latest manuscript, Sun, Wind, Rain. Bruce.
Actually, I'm going to be reading from a different book, but that's my fault. I didn't let John know. Now, the only problem with this camera is you can't get the shoes with this.
We can see the shoes. Those are the same shoes you had in Buffalo.
Yes, they are. The very ones. I had to dust off the cobwebs to get them here. So I'm going to be reading from a book called Strange Minstrelsy. It's taken from John Keats. And these are all almost brand new poems. Some of them, the ink is still wet on them. I'm going to open with one that's a little bit obscure, but I think everybody knows who Ezra Pound is, the American poet. And I make fun a bit of Ezra Pound here. I refer to Dorothy, and Dorothy is Ezra's wife, and they had a somewhat unhappy marriage, and I'm playing with that. Towards the middle of the poem, I mentioned the tone leading of the vowels, and that is a quote from Pound in what's called the Cleaner's Manifesto. He advocated that poets follow the tone leading of the vowels, and I poke a little bit of fun of that. The poem concludes with a quote from Louis Welch, his Wobbly Rock. So this is Anchors Away, which is the initial poem in the book. The eyes of this dead lady, Pound reports twice in a short lyric, supposedly on a modeled Venus, speak to me, and I'd grant that occurred. But the message were far better heard from the damsel's mouth. Delusions of reference, I remember it well. The sound as of a nightingale, Pound further relates, too far off to be heard. Bah, humbug. The painting turns out not even by Jacopo, whom Pound professes knew out the secret ways of love, his account of that glance, and a crib from Swinburne. Love, striking, isn't it, Dorothy? The measures you'd hold others liable for, theft, fidelity, love, end up measuring you. Speaking of your limitations, true witness indeed. Uncle Ezra, the grump, was just making stuff up, tracking perhaps the tone leading of his vowels. Mrs. So-and-so and her ex, the ghost of past Christmases, the note of pissed anchors, the gist of close tissues. Ah, she wrote of ghost issues. One is moved, surely, by seeing snow. There is no such thing, unfortunately, anymore, a prominent Trump supporter states, of facts, and her a news correspondent, or Tiny Tim, thinking Dickens, a figure of ridicule on major television shows in the 1970s. Yet a regular at the same clubs in Greenwich Village that Dylan emerged from, even recorded with Dylan's band. I don't fully know what the point is, okay, but the convergence is hot. Corral become a verb 100 or so years back from the Spanish corro, circle, and Latin curriere, to run, running in circles, not only what cows do. America, my love, you've got no inner life. I turn on the set these days and there's no snow at all. It's all sex, glamour, and gluttony. Reality TV, my ass. Rock star Bruce Springsteen, for example, at a glitzy Hollywood fest, wailing how tramps like us, his coughed, manicured guests, as expected, joining in with a total lack of irony, their fancy footwear tapping. Baby, we were born to run. How I wish. Reddish juniper in the setting sun, all lit up, rocky hillside. Birds almost silent this December. I don't know why. Once the snow melts, the path everyone treads becomes mud. Lou Welch, in contrast, in a moment of pure poetic grandeur. I think I'll call it the Pacific. Rolling thunder. And throughout this book, I make little cryptic comments about Bob Dylan. I'm not sure what the point is, but just so you know that. Scatter of afternoon thunder showers, rainy September smells of grass and juniper, dust rinsed from the air, sunflowers, gold mounds of snakeweed, coyotes yowling, prowling in the damp, 3 packs a mile or so off, yap from 3 directions. Dark scud of thunder drumming through, gray muffled echo across the foothills. Oh, thunder does rumble, does seem to roll, but if you were to speak so, the audience would snooze. The clotted phrasing, trashy tunes, the jumble of platitudes in your head, no content of one's own, numbed television, life insurance, what you'd formulate laid out for you in advance. Yet when you slow, glance skyward, alert to those thoughts, articulate with that instance, the mind at times shocking where it travels, unravels, lightning waggles, snaps, staggers, bolts, meaninglessly kaboom. That's what people say. I should mention, I guess, at this point that I'm real interested in the relationship between thought and language, and I sort of play with self-talk a whole lot. So throughout the poems, these voices will kind of weave back and forth. So there's a kind of dialogue that's taking place in my head as it goes on. Sometimes I attribute that voice and sometimes I don't, just so you know that. This is called Testament. Snowflake, blue air, tossing bright filled, your lilting empty avenues, your billowing drift, excited trace of where you'd think white thrill to arrive, to blanket, ukulele Ike on the phonograph, that lovely lyric croon, makes no difference who you are. How I wish the windows barred, please and thank you, blank slate of my soul. What else do I possess but a particular view, particular mess, the difference I'm made of? Tattered, empty clothes, empty sleep tossing to and fro, empty walk down a forlorn street, empty bought, empty sold, empty talk. I'm yours, light bulb, blink, blink. I'm yours, chair. My tattered innocence and tattered guilt, stack of notebooks, tattered biographical muse, this line of regard straight back. Recall even that sandbox, grassy backyard, all the rehearsals, most mouth, hoist, lumber, jar, catching fireflies, jerking off, the pleasures of childhood, the X you feel rise inside. I could melt in your arms. This is entitled Issue. What you experience alone, trudging rocks and roots through sand, situated as you are, shadow cast, the self-reflective fact of your location, arriving at this place, described by embankment, trees, a juniper for shade, specific bird, Pinion jay, off he goes, blue sky. This particular adventure, given that you've stopped midway, thirsty, hot, hiked this far, and at your age, experience in your thoughts a certain heft, heightened dimension, potential nakedness bound by skin and the periphery of what you'd attend, an apparent independence, self-determined openness, experiencing alone, feeling yourself one step beyond, a potential knowledge exposed to talking through your thoughts, your otherness as disclosure, an event that you alone experience, this descent into person, the singularity you are, though how you know thoughts or what being alone is without a language to guide you, the one you've been inducted into, the conversation of others, the given properties of mind, presupposing, proposing said world, a notion at which you arrive step by twisted step, namely that however alone you find yourself, under whichever trees, whatever you alone experiences, that solitude is by definition social, that one awakens, so to speak, to limitation, to a blank wall. This is called Vignette. Stare out the south window for no purpose you could answer to. Bushes, sand, hill, power line, other than to lock in, drift off, go blank, processing. Processing what, I don't know, but feel it shift, churn, as in inner coastal sensations, not of anything particular, a transparent emptiness. The rudder turns. What's that word rhymes with kissed? Oh, sweet prince, amidst. The house is a mess, dust, I know, and the porch wants attention. The reflections return. But I'm finally reading Gurwich's Field of Consciousness, which sat on the shelf 2 years. Tiny flowers there, the periphery fringed as by trees. You've got to be patient with yourself. That field entails a ground, spread of roots, the give and take of branches, and a figure surrounded, as William James put it, by a halo of relations. Other times, the entire sentence being generated drops away, the aging hands of thought. Where was I? Location, location, location. Of this, Williams charges. Make it of this. Sit back, cup of coffee. It occurs to me, or the depth you'd bring to an experience, changing the sheets, washing dishes. So I could talk about that. But the attention flits, itchy skin, hunger, concern about friends, cramped foot, stand, about the fireplace, temperature, associate hot, jacket, fly fishing, Shakespeare, other books to read, other plans, lost in thought, the telephone rings. In this next poem, a number of people show up. Socrates, Hemingway, Elmore Leonard. Most of the quotes are literal quotes taken from these people, like for Socrates. Sometimes I make up a little bit of what they're saying. Rainy patter. Windy dark, lightning flash, thrash of junipers, a mixed night to be sure. This afternoon, I'd never seen the anthills out back so busy. And if knowing involves skill, doing, they apparently know when rain is due, feel changes in the air, or is that simply their response to a stimulus? A couple hours back, startled by the lovely sunset, a different sort of stimulation, buttery pink glow, tattered, almost grandiose gray cloud. A storm settles overhead by 9:30, rainy patter on the metal roof, slow gurgling in the gutters, plash of rain barrels, such a treat in the desert. Don't ever start with weather, Elmore Leonard warns, and drat, that's just what I've done. Start of what? Hemingway butts in. More dark and stormy verse? We've had our fill of that. But talk does often open on such topics, anchor on common ground, as linguists explain. Are you enjoying this rain? You bet I am. All right, I'll ask differently. What do you intend to bring to this conversation? Oh, I don't know. Electrical storms in July? That needs a predicate. Say the power goes, as it does often. No refrigerator, no water pump, no lights to read by. Get out candles, the road washes out. The plot thickens, threat of fire, lightning, whammo. That's rather a sudden pull-up, Dickens mutters. It does draw the attention, but it's slightly ingenuine. Yet one can't actually know where you're going until you get there. All you have is an intention. Can't know what you think until you do think. Don't always know what you have going. Your wealth is your disposition, no? I am afeard that verges on the poetical, Sammy. Who would read such stuff? Yet one finds oneself, nevertheless, inside that moment. Feel your way by steps. It sort of percolates through. Sex, drugs, music, the drive to novelty, that next big high. Aren't you always seeking how the lift in sensibility, that quickening, the atmosphere charged? Isn't that what inspiration does? Electrify? Poets tell us, don't they, Socrates inquires, smarmy as can be, that the melodies they bring are from the muses. A poet is a light-winged thing, unable to compose until inspired. They do as the muses impel, stand perhaps beside themselves as by an enabling force, but that isn't knowledge or skill, that's magnetism. Make it all up, Hemingway steps in, but make it so truly that later it will happen that way. Write one true sentence and go from there. Use that as your compass. What's to accomplish but what you make of yourself? Yet if it doesn't sing, has no dimension, no resonance, you're flying on one wing. I'd give it an 8 out of 10, my snarky teenager responds. It shakes your booty and touches upon the good, the true, and the beautiful. I wander only as a crowd. Certainly the experience surpasses our ability to grasp what we feel, never mind articulate, never mind its value. One dances in order to dance, feel the feathers inside flutter in some way. Well, your words ain't worth much, Dickens counters, if nobody listens, if you're only talking to hear yourself speak. I had something deeper in mind. I've never met persons unaffected by song. Three more. This one is reading deep. And in this one, I talk about Descartes. I assume everybody knows Descartes. I think, therefore I am, which is the method of doubt. This is called reading deep. Turtle materialized as from mud, you'd guess, one who knows. Or if that's utterly hokey, a niche got provided millions of years ago. That's closer. Water, sunlight, log, school of minnows flashing. Matter-of-factly, turtle shows. For my purposes, foundational. Yet here you are, skimming above, feeling so very rich, informed by wind, by the rippling currents, by the wild flowering, grateful this singular moment, gifted at hand, would reach deep inside the shell of it, sun swirling, blue reflection, drag your fingertips, smelly mud, perch, pickerel, house of sticks, thick cattails, ducklings, lily pads. I see where you're coming from, as they used to say. As beautiful as it is ugly, a big blooming buzzing confusion, William James mused. It depends on context, on perspective, or so you'd suppose, brought in on this conversation. Turtle as model, as target. I ain't who I was. A beaver reads the foliage in riverbank, sets about constructing a dam. Fish read the current, fan and situate their nests. Mink hunt the shallows. Ducks, heron, geese, you might say forms of knowledge, the limitations thereof. I am, I think, as Descartes ably showed, therefore thinks he knows, and so would trace out several more ways to understand this place. Turtle rolling through the green depths in that dreamy Cretaceous way doesn't read finger any more than you do sunlight bouncing off the splashing paddle. No fast divide between what he recognizes and what he does, who he is, doesn't know a person's, the limitations thereof. If it happens to waggle, if you happen to capsize, despair can take you deep, roll you spinning through primordial mud, primordial mind, shake what you think from how you find yourself responding, a murky floundering, witness yourself given over, vanish below the surface, make you know a woeful ignorance, the issue of focus, what you determine, fathom reading deep, the depth of response. And this is wrinkles. Lighten it up a little bit here. It's in the nature of skin to thin and wear, wrinkle, tear, but how depressing to see your features go. The drooping cheeks, bones weakened, achy knees, receding hairline. Oh, body, you're all I've got, and you've abandoned me just when I was getting close. Watch TV, slobber through a meal, gossip, nap again, finish the book finally, and don't remember a goddamn thing. Said differently, I'm about to be finalized. What have I accomplished? Can't sleep right, alert when I go to bed, startled from nightmares, dragged through another groggy, irritable day. Is there a higher purpose than to die? Where's the crisis? Trees die, foxes die, ducks die, Shakespeare died, William James died. What difference now that it's me? Mother died, friends died, the chicken I ate for dinner. Visiting time is over. What difference have I made? All my hard work, all that pain, wrong car, wrong girl, wrong escape plan, nothing but mistakes. And here's the last poem, will be called Moment. The way sunlight come free of clouds momently brightens the dirt road, grass and sand, lifting my mood, a dimension experienced. Okay, what follows? Where to? The ancient philosopher pauses. It's in your head, as John Locke insists. What you reflect upon is sensation. Well, not exactly. I had occasioned the view. Sunlight didn't occur there until I arrived. Something inside clicked, my own brightening, not quite me, in turn elevating that road by a kind of alignment. And though disposed to be so moved, I'd reached somewhere, had imagined myself stranded, a metaphysical distance. It's the driven within the given of it that bewilders me, the uncomfortable degree to which what you look for produces what you see. Back in kindergarten, Goldilocks, for example, whom I wanted to know so bad, because of course she's just beautiful. You can't go wrong looking that good. She turned out such a bitch. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you to our poets and to the audience here in Placitas, New Mexico. And can we give one more round of applause for Michael Boughn and Bruce Holsapple?
Okay, thanks for tuning in.